Alright, so for the first half of this Nuzlocke run, I encounter a couple Pokemons. Cool, really Honedge, Pipedge. I love Piplup and Honedge. One of my favorite Pokemons is Honedge, but Piplup is really cool, and I like this art for him. But after that, I then encounter this ugly ass bat and Tentacly. Just who in the right mind would want to see a big brain bat? And then I had Batter Girl. It looks like a bat with what? Bulbasaur, I think, maybe. But for this run, I'm definitely gonna go little Piplup and Honedge Fusion. So, thinking maybe I finally had a solid run, I nicknamed this thing. So I have to take care of this guy's name. I finally name him Floppy. But I kind of spice it up and give him Floppy Penguin, because it's a penguin. But then I go into the battle with my rival Butty for the second time, and I go up against this nice battle. So I start thinking, strategizing, try to go, okay, what's this thing weak to? My thing's water steel, water normal, I think it was. So not really thinking about what his type was. I go in and take a look at what the typing is for this Pokemon. And his typing, kind of weird, is actually a water ghost. So, and its ability is nice, don't get me wrong, but my dum-dum was like, you know what, maybe this Battle Call, since it's a water flying, it could be weak to a bug type move. Well, that didn't really go that well. And this run was a bite. So after taking that bite, my attack does rise. So I start thinking, okay, what am I going to use? Would Bound even be effective against this water flying, supposedly? Or would it still be good to go and use Furry Cutter even though it missed? So I was having a hard time too. So I just go ahead and use Furry Cutter. Did I just say furry? I mean fury. And sadly, the thing manages to use flame on me. And then goes for a bite again. And I faint and lose. So after picking myself up, we go on to the next run, and this time I got a Ninjask. No, I just had to name this something that would honor PM7. So I went for the Firefish, and I signatured it with the PM7. So after that route, I went on to Route 2's first encounter, where we met our beloved Picaditch, which was a fusion of a Pidgey and Banerian. But I promise you, I'm not a furry. So I was low on Pokeballs. I only had like 3 left this time. Because I was a dumbass and didn't get more Pokeballs. So I had to literally sit there inching its health down little by little by little. Till finally I was able to use Absorb one last time. And I managed to get its health down into yellow, while it still got mine into yellow at the same time. So I go in the Pokebag, throw a Pokeball one more time, hoping to get it and not be called a furry. And it escapes it again. So I use a Scratch in rebellion to me putting in a Pokeball. So I use Absorb again. And it just goes back and forth and back and forth. So after finally using so many absorbs that were not very effective, I finally get it down into the red. So I go into my bag, hoping to catch it with this last Pokeball I have. I throw it. It rolls once, and it does not go in. And then it scratches me as another retaliation. So I was out of luck on this one. So I just said, you know what? Take my roll out and just leave me alone, because I don't want to deal with you anymore. So after taking care of that, I went back to the Pokemon Health Center and went ahead and healed up my Pokemon, brought them to full health. And after I healed them up, I went ahead and went down to the Poke Center to get some Pokeballs. I got about 15 Pokeballs plus one Premier Ball, so hopefully we have enough to be able to get a couple more Pokemon before the gym. So after healing up my Pokemon, I go back to Route 2 to take care of the last patch of grass, and my first encounter here was actually a Rattata. And honestly, the thing actually didn't look that bad. So I sent out Slime Ring, and I go ahead and use Absorb, hoping that doesn't do too much damage. It does little to nothing. But Rattata decides to use Tail Whip, which still raises my speed, so hopefully it out counters it when it tries to attack. So we just played this game of back and forth until finally, after so long, I was able to use this last Absorb and finally use Tail Whip still on me. So I was able to manage to get its health down just enough to potentially capture it. So I open up my Pokebag and I'm like, alright, let's just use a Premier Ball that I got. So I use a Premier Ball, it shakes once, shakes twice, and shakes for a third time, finally capturing this thing. So I first started thinking about its name. I'm like, this thing doesn't like me much. So I was like, maybe Yoshi? It kind of looked like a Yoshi at first, but then I'm like, wait, this thing really hated me for it to keep lowering my defense. So I went ahead and decided on it to be called Ainty, because it ain't liking me. After that encounter, I go straight in to Viridian Forest, where I found this really ugly looking Togedemac. And I still want to take it out of its misery, but it's basically a Togepi and a Swinub fusion. So I went ahead and fought it using Absorb, and it took its health down pretty far. Took it down all the way into yellow. So I just go ahead and go into my bag, open it up, and throw the first Pokeball. Thing gets out right away. So I just sat there thinking, okay, how can I get this thing? Should I attack still, or should I take the Pokeball? So I just literally use another Pokeball, throw it, and well, it captures. So after capturing this thing, I knew its name right away. It was already so ugly, and it needed to be reminded that I need to get rid of this after the run. So I named it Save Me. So after that battle, I go into this next little patch of grass in Viridian Forest and pick up this little item that's over here. But my next encounter, you'll never believe it. It was a Honedge with a canopy. And darn, this thing looked so cool. But I was so dumb and just said, you know what, I don't need another Honedge. So I went ahead and used Rollout and just kept using Rollout and finally fainted it. But sadly, for this next encounter, it's one of the saddest encounters I'll ever have. I go up top, and well, this may be the final one, because the game just wanted to freaking crash, and I still haven't saved. So I had to abandon the Shredden and the whole team that I just built. So going into the third round, I just know this has to be the winning round. Unlike the first one, that'll never be shown because that is the bane of the existence, because that darn Pokemon Wonder Guard Fusion. So after saving to make sure that it didn't happen again, I get the first starter. The first starter is actually a Bobbler, a fusion of Lucario and Bulbasaur. And man, this thing looked cool. But for the second one, was a Fraggy, a fusion of a Frature and a Pidgey, which isn't a bad fusion. It looked really cool. Honestly, those double beaks, kiss. Then for the second fusion, I don't know what happened to him, but it was an Exilute. Somehow, a Golgalot and scrambled eggs, execute, managed to fuse together. So, I went ahead and took probably the best Pokemon I think I've actually gotten so far, Fraggy. It was a freaking Fracture and Pidgey, how could you not? Right? So after taking this sweet dragon, I had a perfect name for it. And then the reason behind it is if you look very closely, it had 1, 2, 3 beaks. And man, the thing was perfect for it. So I called it Triple Beak. Going into this fight, I noticed that I was facing somebody called Booty Bane. I think somehow Sir Bane and Booty Bandit managed to fuse together. So, I am going up against Booty Bane that chose Babylon. So, I go ahead and use Dragon Rage. And this thing almost dies. So, it's in the red. So, I just use Dragon Bane one more time. And you know what? It was no trouble at all. So after that fight with my rival, the Booty Bandit and Sir Bane combined somehow, I guess they were still confused because they let me win. But I was on to the professor's task now. So after delivering the parcel, I tried to keep on asking questions about if he fused his nephew, but he just ended up giving me Pokeballs. So I just said, alright, fine, whatever. So I went on my first. So on to Route 1, I go ahead and this time I'm not going to do as much. So I go ahead and go up to the left in Route 1. And I see a Silicat, a Sylveon and a Nagacat fusion that looks not half bad, just I don't know. Sprite looks okay. So after using Dragon Rage, which had no effect, it decides, hey, let's use Disarming Voice, which was super effective. So I was like, okay, let's use Assurance. But it decides to use Helping Hand with no effect. And I just go Assurance again. Then I go right back into my bag, grab a Pokeball, and hope it catches this. Because darn, I want that Sylveon. 2, 3, and there we go, we caught it. So after taking a bit of time, think about the name, I finally decided, because this thing's sprite just looks like somebody spit at it and fused them together with the spit. So I decided either Spitty, but I just went with Spitacad. Then our next encounter here on Route 1 is your favorite quad-eared Pokemon, Shinx, in Jigglypuff fusion, which was a balloon type Pokemon. Tell me, would you ever have this Pokemon as a balloon? I wouldn't be caught dead at a theme park with this Pokemon. Would you? So after deciding finally to fight this thing, I go ahead and use Assurance. It takes down a little bit of damage, and then it uses Tackle on me. And then again, I just use Assurance. Takes it down a little bit, then it uses the Tackle, and then I use Assurance one more time. But then it uses Sing on me for some odd reason and puts me to sleep. But that didn't matter. I go into my bag, open the use a Pokeball, and hopefully it shakes once. Nope, it broke free. And hits me for tackle again, so I use another Pokeball. It shakes maybe? Nope, it broke free. And then it uses Defense Curl. And then I use a Pokeball again. Instead of attacking it. Shakes once, shakes twice, shakes third. I finally catch this darn thing. So after catching it with the Pokeball, I think of its name and I quickly decide, since it's so eerie and yeah, I just hope it can't read minds though. So I go ahead and call it Voices. So after skipping the rest of Route 1 and 2 encounters, I go to Viridian Forest because I'm on a hound hop for that. Very little encounters for the gym leader for the first batch because I was mad about things. So after entering my first battle with this bug type Pokemon trainer, I bring out Triple Beat, and you know what? He brings out a Meditash, and that stands no chance against my Dragon Rage. So I use it, and man, that thing just gets one shot. Oof, Triple Beak, buddy. And he finally rose to level 9. He wants to learn Guts. So I go in and learn the new move. And the trainer decides to bring out a new Pokemon, and this time it's Sandoof. Ugh, thing with its front beak, teeth, and ears, and tail. I just don't know. So I hope Dragon Rage did some damage, and well, yeah, it did. It one shot again. So I decided if he's gonna bring out Hoppish, I'm like, you know what? Let's bring out Voices because I think Triple Beak was weak to Hoppish. Well, that was the worst mistake I ever made. So I, of course, used Sing to put it to sleep, and I just kept and then it decided to use Sweet Scent, and I used Sing, and after it fell asleep, I just went ahead, tackled it, and well, now it woke up, so it used Tail Whip on me, and my defense fell. I used Tackle, and then I used Synthesis, and then finally I'm like, nope, this is too much. So I went ahead and brought back out our Triple Beak boy. One shot it again. So after bringing out Triple Beak, I go straight for that heavy kill of Dragon Rage. And well, it was pretty well worth it. I one shot it, and it faints, and we won the gym battle. But Voices also grew to a new level, and it wanted to learn Leer, but I gave up trying to have it learn Leer. The reason I wanted to give it up is because, well, I just didn't want the thing to blow its brains out. So after going out of the battle to catch a couple new Pokemon on this run, I was enjoying some great fries. But I encountered a weird looking Jigglypuff. I hope it doesn't nurse me into a cocoon after using Pound a couple times. So I just decided to use Voices. And Voices, I kind of hoped I could put it to sleep. But Pound worked just fine. Pounded it, and it kept using Defense Curl over and over. So I used Pound one more time in hopes of getting it. But of course, using Pound, well, it helped. I got it down to yellow. However, Jigglypuff finally tackled me. Yeah. I then open up my Pokebag and just hope it gets caught with this Pokeball. So let's see. One shake, two shakes, three shakes. Yeah, we finally caught the ugly Jigglypuff. And after catching it and looking at that sprite, I just call it Drip because that sprite looks like it's dripping. For our next encounter here in the top left hand corner of the forest, we encounter the lovely Benub, Rule 64. dark web cutie. Trying to make sure to not rough it up so that I could, so that I could keep it safe and happy. I go ahead and use a Pokeball, but the Pokeball, sadly, yeah, it kind of just escaped it real fast. So it used Defense Curl after I used the Pokeball. And after it used Defense Curl, I went ahead and used Assurance, and then it used Foresight. And after Foresight, I just go right in the Pokeball, hoping this time catch it. I throw it. It shakes once, shakes twice, shakes third time, but it still gets out. Then it uses Foresight again. So I decide, you know what? Let's throw one more, hope it gets in. Once, twice, a third time, we finally caught it. And if you already haven't guessed it, I'm going to call this thing Snugglebud. Then on to our next encounter, we see a weird looking Cenetat. Like I said, I'm sorry, but my fries at that time were better than this encounter, so I killed it using Assurance, and it went down in one hit. And finally, we are on to our last encounter before the gym. And you will not believe this. It was actually a cool Voltorb level 4. So I sent out Snugglebud, as it was a low level at the time. And I realized it only knew Pound. So I kept on using Pound in hopes it would get it. But it rose its stats. So I finally had it down in the red. And finally rose its defense. So I used a Pokeball. On the first try, you will not believe this, but 1, 2, 3, we finally caught a Voltorb. So after catching it, I started thinking, you know what? How can I trap the gym later? So I was like, you know what? I need to call this thing L-Trap in hopes that it'll trap the gym leader. So upon arriving at the gym, I go talk to the old man, and you won't believe this. He tells me the type here is an electric type gym. So he gives me fresh water, and it's time to fight. So I go into the battle with Capital M, who says I'm years ahead of him. So he sends out a Breep, while I just go ahead and send out our favorite boy, Triple Beak. And you know what? I use Dragon Rage. I wiped the floor with him, gaining that XP, and I was like, you know what, I'm not going to switch, he only has 2, so he sends out a Shinette, which had Intimidate, which is kind of weird when I think about, but I used Dragon Rage and faint that right away. That was the first gym challenger down. Now on to Brock. So finally, after that battle, I am now ready to face Brock. And I have to remember though, if I lose this battle, I lose and have to start all over. So after choosing Triple Beak and Snugglebud as my partners against Brock, so going into this battle with our boy Triple Beak, starting off, he brings out Shinon, which isn't a bad type up. But you know what? Against my Triple Beak boy, he got no chance. So I go ahead and use Assurance. Because if I remember right, it is a dark type, but it decides to use Leer, so it lowers my defense. So I go right away and use Dragon Rage and hoping it faints. Which it did. And now he's going to send out a Flareon. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and switch out for Snugglebud. And maybe put it to sleep and hope it doesn't faint. So he sends out a double-head Flamido. That was a pink, weird-looking, ugly thing now that I see it. And I use Foresight, and Foresight did help for the first round, but when I fought, next run and use pound. Yeah, used furry attack. And I lost my money. So me mad here, I used triple beak. Well, triple beak used dragon rage to get some revenge. And this thing fainted like no other. And there was my first gem badge and how I earned it for a Pokemon Nuzlocke run.